Hi, it's Matt in the kitchen. I'm here today with my pressure cooker, and today I'm going to make steamed Chinese chicken with bok choy. So this is a very simple, very easy recipe. You actually don't need a pressure cooker. You can just steam it, but I find that the pressure cooker is a nice way to do it all nice and contained. So the first step for this is to make the sauce, which has a few ingredients. So the first one is green onions or scallions. So I just chop off those roots, wash them up, and I'm going to just slice those up. So I've sliced those up nice and into nice little rings. I'm going to put those in my bowl. So I want about a quarter cup or a half a cup. I don't think you can actually go wrong with green onions. I use them in everything. If you think you have too many, save them for some eggs for the next morning or something like that. But I really love my green onions. So, got your green onions? The next thing you're going to want to do is add about a tablespoon of ginger. So you can use fresh ginger that's grated. I like to use some pre-ground ginger because it's fast. So we'll get a good tablespoon of ginger in there. You could also use ginger powder if you wanted. That will work just fine, although the fresh stuff is a little bit nicer. And if you have it in a little jar like this in your fridge, you don't have to do much work. Next, I'm going to add my tamari, or you can add soy sauce. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of that. So let's put that in. 2 tablespoons, give it a nice flavor. You can measure it, or you can just guess. I'm a big fan of guessing. There we go. Now, if you have it, it's really nice to add a little bit of sesame oil. I'm just going to add a teaspoon. You don't want to add too much. It's got a rather strong flavor. There we go, generous teaspoon. It's got a rather strong flavor. You don't want to add too much of it. So this is going to be it. Let me just smell that. Okay, that looks great. So the final thing is to actually turn this into the sauce that we're going to use. I'm going to add about half a cup of grapeseed oil. So grapeseed oil has very little flavor. I'm just going to put that in there, add it, and I'm going to let this sit. So you can use it right away, or you can let it sit overnight. If you let it sit overnight, it's going to pull in the flavors a little bit better. So we'll be back soon to do the rest of the meal. Okay, now that my sauce is made, I'm going to do the bok choy. So I took a baby bok choy, so it's a little bit smaller. You can see here, it's only about 6 inches long. It's a little head. I just washed it up, and what I'm going to do, get the water out of here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it into kind of basically bite-sized pieces. And I'll just throw that off to the side. So the center part, you can actually break it down. You know, that's a good bite-sized piece. For the larger ones, I'm going to cut them into strips depending on their size. Like this one I can actually leave about where it is, or maybe cut it in half. So I'm actually going to go and I'm going to make like cut into some wide strips, so 1 inch or so wide. So like this one I'm going to cut into 3. So I want it to be something that people can go and they can chop with their teeth. They won't necessarily have to use a knife, or they can bundle it up if they really want. So just going to go wash it up. I washed it up, and now it comes time to chop. Here you go, some nice pieces. I'm going to put it all on here. Now, and there. 2 small ones. I'm going to chop them in half. Okay. So that's all going to be ready to go on top. So now, Now I'm going to take my 2 chicken breasts. So these are actually a good size. They're each about half a pound. They're quite thick, so they're not going to cook very nice. Just going to rip off the inner there. So I'm going to make them a little bit thinner. So there's a few ways you could go. You could go and slice it this way, make it flat, make it a little bit thinner that way, or you could turn it into a number of little strips, which is actually the option I'm going to go. So I'm just going to go put into strips, you know, about a good ½ inch thick. So you can do it into, so I'm going to do that way, do it into strips about ½ inch thick. Nice long ones. I like the look of that one for this meal. It's going to kind of go with the way the chicken's done there. The other option is you can do it sideways. You could do it kind of like a medallion, but let's go with longer strips today. I could do shorter strips and cut it crosswise. So I just feel like doing this today. So I've got a bunch of strips here. So I've got my chicken, I've got my bok choy, and I've got my sauce. All right. Okay, so now I've got my pressure cooker. Now I'm going to be using the steam cycle, so read the manual, make sure you put the right amount in. For this one, it's actually, I think it's 3/4 cup. Add my water. So I just want to make sure the full bottom's covered. So your manual will tell you how much water to add. Then I'm going to use a steam rack. So I like this collapsible one. I took out the support post there, so it gets right in there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to layer the chicken in. Do it a single layer, so that it will steam nicely. We don't want it to lay on top of each other and get too thick, because that will prevent it from cooking properly. So I'm just laying this in here. Alright. Make sure it's not laying on top of itself. Got that. One more piece here and one more piece here. Excellent. Now go ahead and make noise. Okay, so we've got our chicken in there. It's one layer, it's rather thin. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bok choy and just lay that on top. If you have a second pressure cooker, which I actually do, or you have, you can steam it separately. But I'm going to, for effect, do it in one pot so that you can see what it will look like then. Also, I don't like doing dishes, so by doing it all in one pot, less dishes. So I'm just going to lay this on, fill this out. And you can see that the bok choy is actually going to take up quite a bit of room in here, which is, and this was only one little baby bok choy, so it's quite a filling part of the meal. And then those little bits on the end. If they're really small, you might not want to put them in. You can save them for something else. Do not put the seasoning in here. This is just the bok choy and the chicken. So now, with your pressure cooker, it matters. Doesn't matter which one. We're going to.
Hello, this is Cuckoo, voice guide.
So, depending on your pressure cooker, the instructions here are a little bit different, but basically we'll close it and we'll run it for about 12 minutes. Then we'll check to make sure our chicken is actually done. Depending on your pressure cooker and how thick you slice your chicken, this can change. Make sure it's not pink. So this pressure cooker, I lock it. Unfortunately, the first time I made this video, I messed up the reveal with that pressure cooker. So I have retaken it. The second time I made this recipe, I used my Instant Pot. So you're going to notice that it's a different pressure cooker, but it's actually the same recipe. I also used normal bok choy instead of baby bok choy for this recipe. I do think the baby bok choy works a little bit nicer to get those nice bite-sized pieces, but the taste is very similar and delicious both ways. So here's the reveal. Okay, here we are. It's been 15 minutes. I've released the pressure, and let's look at it. All right. And you can see the bok choy in here. It's quite cooked. It's a very dark color. It's going to be very soft. So some people might think this is a little bit on the overcooked side, but it does taste delicious. It is a little bit dark, and washed out, but it's going to be melt in your mouth soft. So I'm just going to go pull it out with some silicone tongs here and lay it out to make a nice bed of green. So if you did want to, oh, there we go. If you did want to, you could always go and do a second pressure cooker or steamer and do a lighter steam. Oh, ooh, hot. And do a lighter steam on that second one so that it's a more vibrant green. There you go. We've got it laid out here. Okay, so there we have that. Just going to pull out the chicken. Go lay it down. 2 nice pieces. Piece over here. I'll actually break this one up a little bit. I'm going to take a little third piece. I'm going to go kind of lay it out. Chicken here, chicken there. Kind of arrange it a little bit. I do like to use, so there we go. I do like to personally use small plates because then they make all my meals look bigger and I'm less tempted to overeat. Take the sauce that we made up previously. I'll just take the plastic off of that. I'm going to go gently spoon it out on top. There we go. I really like having a lot of green onion. I use it on everything, but you do want to make sure you get a good amount of oil on this too. Again, if you really don't like to have very oily meals, you could lighten it up, but you do want a little bit of that to give it a little bit of that flavor and the texture. Alright, just going to drizzle a little bit more on there. There we go. So, really quick, really good meal. There we go. It's very quick. You can prepare most of it ahead. Let me know if you like this video. I'd be interested to know what your feedback is. Again, I do read my comments, so if you have any comments or questions, go ahead and leave those. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you want to check out more videos, and of course, always email me or drop me a message if you want to see something specific. I'd be glad to help you out. That's all for now, and enjoy your dinner.